So basically the sight it's got an integrated rangefinder in it. So you have this little button that's taped onto the front of your bow where the grip is, and you press that button down and it shoots out that rangefinder, and you line up your reticle, like you were talking, you've got your donut and your donut hole. So you're trying to line those up, and as soon as you get your red dot in your reticle, and that's where you want to be, you let go, it tells you your range, and then it automatically displays a pin where you need to have it. And then from there, as long as the animal doesn't move, fire away.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. So it's and it works. Like, I really didn't expect it to work.
But I definitely see, you still need to be a good shot. It doesn't take away that human element. When you have a deer in front of you and your heart's pounding and, some people are shaking, you still have to be able to make a good shot.
Well, besides just having cool technology, I think the thing I like the most is that I know right off the bat if I'm not anchored right, or if I'm torquing the bow, because when I'm not fitting the dot in the circle or the donut hole
in the donut.
There's so much work that goes into hunting beforehand, before that animal walks in front of you.
Okay, folks, welcome to the Gritty Bowmen podcast. We're in Texas, in pig country. I'm down here with some cool folks from Garmin, and I have 3 guests here, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves, starting with Emily on my right, who's single, by the way.
Thank you. Emily Kantner from Peterson's Bow Hunting.
Okay. How long you been there?
Just over a year.
Okay. And Morgan on the left?
Yep. So I'm Morgan Mason. I'm the contributing editor for Hunt and Fish category at GearJunkie.com. And we've primarily been like an outdoor rec site, but the editor-in-chief and partners have decided they want to step into the hunting scene and start going for that. And so I've been the first hire on that and started off at ATA and jumping into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's
awesome. And Lucas.
Yeah, I'm Lucas Cooney. I am the editor of Archery Talk's kind of video page, and I also run sites like ATV.com and things like that at Vertical Scope.
Nice. So we were invited to come down here and test out this Xero Sight that Garmin has created, and did a podcast with Chad and Ted from Garmin, engineer and PR guy. And on this podcast, I just want to get into our impressions of the sight. And Lucas, I'll start with you. The moment I saw you come out and shoot, I could tell you'd spent some time behind a bow and arrow.
Yeah, I fell in love with archery about 5 years ago. I was actually at an event for ATV.com with Kawasaki, and then they invited Hoyt Archery for the afternoon to shoot. I'd never touched a bow in my life, and I took 3 shots, and I said I need one of these bows, and I bought one. Then I bought another one, and then I bought another one, and then the obsession continued.
So, you've done some archery tournaments?
Yeah, I've done a bunch of 3D tournaments and, spot tournaments, everything I can. I've tried all of it.
Yeah. And, so I was watching you, shoot, have your release. You're basically, you're very much, you're not punching the trigger. You're trying to execute that perfect surprise release.
I try to. I can't shoot a trigger. I just shoot a hinge all the time for everything. I don't have the mental makeup to use a trigger without punching it. I wish I did. I see guys who can do it, but I don't have that in me. So I just use a hinge for everything.
Yeah. Now, so you spent some time using different sights. How did this sight turn out for you?
I was super excited to try it. As soon as I heard about it at ATA show and we talked to Garmin when we were there, I haven't seen everything it can do yet. We had this for 2 hours before we had to go sit in a stand.
Yeah.
It didn't take long to get comfortable with it. Once we get the first little thing figured out, getting that dot sitting in the circle. Once we did that, it was pretty simple to get it. I got my yardage done really fast. And it's a pretty easy user experience. There's a lot going on. Mm-hmm. I think once I learn more about it and what everything it can do, I'll probably be scratching my head at a few things, just because that's not my strength.
Yeah.
But it's cool. It works. It ultimately has worked out really well so far.
And Morgan.
Yep.
What's your initial impression so far, just overall?
Overall, it is as they've called it, it is a game changer. And there's going to be a lot of folks in the industries like trying to catch up to this thing because they did not raise the bar just a little bit. They took some bounds and leaps and really got after it with this sight. Really excited to get my hands out here. Initially out here, getting it ranged in and getting it figured out. Like you said, we had very limited time on that, but we got it done. And really excited to get it out and get after some 3D target shoots and get out in the field and really beat it up and see everything that this site has to offer. But so far, it's been great.
Emily?
I was not as excited about using it, not because I don't love trying new products, but I'm not techie. I'm used to a fixed pin sight, so I was a little bit nervous about it. Getting it set up was a lot easier than I expected. And then just getting it out in the field, I think when you're shooting, instinct takes over, and it just became second nature to use it, and I really enjoyed shooting it.
I think, when I watch you shoot, especially true, like I have 3 daughters and a wife who all have bows and are all shooting archery. And when you're dealing with a setup that you're trying to make lethal, you want your arrow to have a certain weight or a certain front of center. You want momentum behind that arrow, some real killing power. And when you're dealing with young girls that are shooting, especially my daughters and then my wife, they're not drawing. Their draw length is pretty short. Their poundage draw weight is pretty low. And so therefore they can't have as heavy an arrow without really sacrificing speed. And so the difference between a 30-yard shot and a 40-yard shot, the pin gap on a traditional sight, gets dramatic. Where for me, a lot of times it's 50 to 60 or 60 to 70. But for lower poundage setup, lower draw length, just for a slower arrow flight, you're going to have, you got some serious arc. And the difference between 1 yard or 2 yards on a target can be, a foot or more drop. Right?
Yeah, that's true. I'm lucky enough to have a long draw length. But I shot a deer earlier, in the fall, and it was at 37 yards. I ranged it, and I was using a 5-pin fixed sight at the time. I'm like, where exactly do I need to put that pin? And I end up with a good shot, but ultimately it's still, you're still trying to do calculations in your head while you're at full draw and you're amped up because there's a deer in front of you.
Right.
This does kind of take that out of the equation. And when I shoot target, I always shoot a single pin sight, but I don't want a single pin for hunting because I don't want to have to worry about dialing something in, and if something's only there for a couple seconds. So it really is kind of the best of both worlds. And you can shoot a fixed pin version of this if you want to anyway.
Right, yep. Right. Emily, I'm looking at you, and yeah, you've got that shorter draw length, lower poundage, and all of that. And so when you're shooting something and you're pin gapping, mm-hmm. it's more challenging.
Yeah, the farther you get, too. So if I have a 30 and 40-yard pin, 34 yards, I'm guesstimating. And as we saw as we were shooting the course yesterday, I'm awful at that, and I do not belong guessing distance at all. So it's definitely a game changer for me to be able to get that precise pin, the exact yardage.
Yeah, let's talk about yesterday's experience. So, for those that are listening that haven't listened to the other podcast with Garmin, we're talking about the Xero Sight. Let's just briefly describe what that is, how it works. Morgan, can you give a shot?
Okay, so basically the sight it's got an integrated rangefinder in it. So you have this little button that's taped onto the front of your bow where the grip is, and you press that button down, and it shoots out that rangefinder, and you line up your reticle, like you were talking, you've got your donut and your donut hole. So you're trying to line those up, and as soon as you get your red dot in your reticle, and that's where you want to be, you let go, it tells you your range, and then it automatically displays a pin where you need to have it. And then from there, as long as the animal doesn't move, fire away.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. So it's and it works. Like, I really didn't expect it to work. I don't know why. I was highly skeptical, but it actually works. So with that said, we did a short 3D course yesterday with Garmin. And Emily, you want to describe that?
Yeah, so it was a really good exercise. So we went through and we would all take a look at where the target was, and we had to guess the range. And I don't think I was ever even within 5 yards of any of the targets. So, and I didn't think I was going to be that bad. So after we all guessed and found out how off we were, then we all took a turn, taking a shot. And we had the precise pin, so 34-yard target right on there. But it was a great exercise in seeing how much that guesswork doesn't always work. And that's, just in a relaxed environment when we're shooting at targets. When you're pumped up, shooting at a deer and you're guesstimating, that's, you're even going to be farther off. So definitely reconfirmed that this is such a great tool for getting that precise pin.
And it's like, I don't know a single bow hunter that goes out into the field and doesn't bring a rangefinder with him. Mm-hmm. And so you can go out there in the 3D target and you can range it and you know the pin. But if you're going out and hunting animals, those animals don't stand still. And so as soon as they start moving, you may be down at like full draw, and then you've got to, if they start moving and they go like up or down or around, you've got to bring your bow back, range them again, and then draw again. That, like, you'll miss so many shots that way. And with this one, like I said before, you just hold that button down and you can range that animal the whole time. And as soon as he stops and like you're ready to take the shot, you can do it. And so that's a really cool aspect.
How many of you, have taken shots without using a rangefinder?
On an animal?
On animals.
I've never taken one on an animal without a rangefinder.
I typically, with whitetail hunting, you just have shorter shooting lanes and things like that. So I'll range, maybe 10 different things, like a tree here or something. So you get a general idea.
So you climb in a stand. It's a set and controlled environment.
Right.
You scan, this tree's 20, that tree's 30, this patch of grass is 40, and you kind of get all of it dialed.
Right. But then, if the deer comes in right between there, I'm still probably guesstimating, because you don't always have the luxury when there's a deer 15 yards from you of pulling up your rangefinder. So definitely using the rangefinder, but still not being as precise.
Yeah, you still have to pin gap, and unless you have a slider and a single pin slider, but that's like death. Like the buck's comes walking in, he's 30 yards. Next thing you know, he trots over to the doe at 20, and you've already slid to 30. Now you're sliding to 20, or you're just trying to pin gap. Again, if you've got a 31-inch draw and you're drawing 80 pounds and you have a 480 pound grain arrow, you're shooting laser bolts, right? So it's not as critical. But like I said, if you're shooting a very heavy arrow, and you've got that short draw weight, you got the short draw length. That gapping is. You just can't get away with it like a guy that can be wrong by 5 to 10 yards and still hit the target.
Yeah, still get it in that kill zone.
Mm-hmm. So when we went around, Lucas, you've done a bunch of 3D.
I have.
Were you surprised, or is this about what you expected when you went around and guessed yardage?
I mean, I'm not good at guessing yardage. The site did great at guessing yardage. It worked great. No, I shot some unknown 3D when I first got started in archery, and I realized right away this was not a strength of mine. So I just started shooting known classes anyway, because I figure when I'm hunting, I'm using a rangefinder.
Yep.
And anyway, so I've never really had to worry about guessing yardage. It's just not a strength.
Yeah. Do you think? Yeah, I've spent some time with Aaron doing 3D, and I'm 30 and under. I think I'm pretty good, but at the same time, I don't have that much arrow drop. So even when I'm wrong, I'm still kind of in that the kill zone.
Except for that first boar that was at 28 yards, and we all thought was at 40.
Dude,
Not all of us.
No, I guess 41 or something like that. 28 yards. That's so wrong. It's sad.
There's no way I would hit that. It would have made contact with that boar.
Well, after hunting with Aaron Snyder for a couple of years, I've seen Aaron capitalize on moments because he guessed yardage accurately and made the shot. In times where I wouldn't guess. I would pull out the rangefinder and get a reading and then shoot. Like, I just wasn't confident that I knew that range, and so I just chose not to shoot. But then seeing Aaron pull off shots by guessing and guessing accurately, multiple times, it was a skill I wanted to acquire. So I spent a lot of time guessing and practicing and doing 3D ranges, and Aaron helping me determine, okay, if we're in a dark tunnel of trees, the target's going to appear, closer or further away, deduct some yard. He guesses yards and he deducts like 4 yards off of it just automatically, things like that, where, wide open, he has different ways of kind of having done 3D as long as he's got different ways of figuring that out. And then he adjusts for wind with an uncanny accuracy as well. And so I've tried to emulate that. So this year I have capitalized on a number of hunts because I took shots without using a rangefinder. Flat out, it made me way more lethal, being able to just draw, know the yardage, and shoot. I also missed a couple times on targets that I should have hit. Like, if I knew the yardage, I would hit. Aaron and I had an elk that I stalked into an aspen, a thick aspen grove. And elk comes walking out, and there was a lane there, and I could swear that elk was 30 yards away. I was confident that elk was 30 yards away. Came to full draw, executed the shot. The shot went low, just right through the brisket, really low, passed through. Wasn't fatal at all, didn't hurt the bull. He ran off, and I was like, so I ranged after he had left. I ranged the spot. My arrow was like in a tree. Range where I'm at was 40 yards. I was off by 10 yards. And that was the drop that I had, and I missed. I would have killed that bull with this sight, period. So when I think about it, and I think in terms of, does this increase my chances of success? It absolutely does. Yeah. It will increase harvest rates. Yep. But that's a bone of contention for a lot of archery hunters that have voiced their opinion on the site. To me, as I've brought it up in social media, hey, I'm testing it, blah, blah, blah. There are a lot of people who are like, I don't like the fact that this is going to increase success rates. What are your thoughts on that, Morgan? Like, because it will, in essence, if the harvest rates go up, then opportunity goes down.
Yeah. I mean, to an extent, we're bow hunting. This is the hardest form of hunting that you can go out and do. It's way harder than going out with a rifle, I'd argue. And so if you're getting out there and you're able to put yourself into an animal, or like in front of an animal, or get that animal in front of you, and you have the opportunity to take that shot, like, I feel that you should have the most lethal shot on that animal. For me, I'd rather have that than to have a bunch of wounded animals. That's just kind of my opinion on it. I'd rather see that animal harvested and brought back and put in the freezer than to be limping off somewhere in the woods and die like a week later.
Yeah.
So,
what do you think, Lucas?
Again, everything we do to have more success. I wore camo when I was hunting an hour and a half ago because I didn't want the pigs to see me. Mm-hmm. Is that now that's going to increase the harvest rate? Instead of I was out there in jeans and a yellow shirt. Everything you buy the best bow you can afford, and the best arrows you can afford, and the best broadheads you can afford. Everything you do is to try to be as lethal as you can. So what's this arbitrary reason we're stopping with this sight? I mean, everything we do, you cover with scent. You're covering your scent. Every single thing you do is there to hopefully increase your harvest rate. And but still, you still got a stick and a string. You're still trying to using a bow and arrow to take down a deer or a pig or whatever you're using. So I mean, for me, I'm not bothered by that.
Yeah. Emily, did you have any reservations about using it?
Just because, it is more advanced technology, that made me nervous, not from the perspective of, oh, hey, this isn't fair. But I definitely see, you still need to be a good shot. It doesn't take away that human element. When you have a deer in front of you and your heart's pounding and, some people are shaking, you still have to be able to make a good shot. So it doesn't take away the challenging aspect of bow hunting. It's just helping you make a more lethal shot.
And the thing is this is all, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
It's not like giving it to you. Like everything that's shown on the screen, it's all based on your input into it. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to spend the time out at the range. You've got to dial it in just like you would a mechanical pin. It's just as soon as you range it, you've got your pin. So you still have to put all that input into it and put all that homework and all that in the initial process that you would anyways.
So, Emily, you wouldn't take a shot without using a rangefinder.
No. I mean, we saw yesterday I cannot do that.
Yeah, I would argue like most archers can't, to be honest. Like,
I was consistently off about 10 yards at least.
yeah, I would say Morgan was the best at that for sure.
Yeah.
You were pretty close most of the time, but you don't shoot without ranging at first either.
No, I'm definitely ranging as much as I can. Sitting up on the whitetail stand, ranging trees about 15 times before I feel comfortable that I remembered it.
So this is basically like if you have a rangefinder and, a slider sight, but it's taking out, that time and that movement of adjusting it.
Yeah.
So basically the same tools combined into one there.
I know places where, you got this alfalfa field and you've got this hay bale blind and then you've got markers in the ground like you do at a golf course. That's like 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards. So you can just tell where the elk is and draw and shoot like that fast, or whatever. There's lots of ways that people try to figure out and game that system to increase their success rates. I feel like for me, well, I'm going to ask you, Lucas, what is the part about this sight that makes you the most excited to use it?
Well, besides just having cool technology, I think the thing I like the most is that I know right off the bat if I'm not anchored right or if I'm torquing the bow, because when I'm not fitting the dot in the circle or the donut hole
in the donut.
Well, see, I'm Canadian. That term doesn't make sense. They're called timbits. So when the timbit is in the crawler and then when the timbit's in the hole, then I know I'm set up properly. And so when you draw back and then it's out just a little bit right, then all right, I've either got to reset or just kind of tweak my form till I'm in the right spot. I think that's a really cool, teaching tool, if anything else. And then, I shoot a lot, so I'm not super concerned about it, but also I'm testing a million bows all the time. So sometimes your form is a little bit different, and that I think that'll help fix some form issues. And he maybe even tell you if your draw length might be a little bit long on one bow or not or the other. I think I like that a lot.
Morgan, what about you?
I'd have to agree with everything you just said about that, like being able to really like lock your form into place.
And timbits.
Yep, exactly. Yes, that too. Love that. But also the aspect that I mentioned is being able to range that animal exactly where you want it to be, because I lose sleep if I injure an animal and I can't recover it. And so being able to know that I've got every tool in my toolbox to put that animal down quickly and get that back in my freezer, like that's what I'm excited about, being a more successful hunter.
Yeah. Have you guys, who's used a single pin slider?
Not for hunting purposes, but for target, I use it all the time.
Okay. What have you noticed? Is it a vertical pin or horizontal?
Vertical pin.
Vertical pin. So vertical sliding sight, single pin. I mean, so I used one for a few years, and when I range and use that slider, I'm like deadly. Like I'm like in the money almost every single time, because I can shoot. I just don't pin gap or guess yardage. We're the dang. Yeah. We're the dang. And with lots of practice, I've gotten a little better, but so I'm very lethal if I have the time to range and I have a single pin. The single pin matters because, I try to shoot a heavier arrow, so it's more lethal. And I have a short draw length, like 28 inches, 28 and a half. This year I shot like 67 pounds, not a ton, and I'll probably raise that this next year. I shot 80 the year before, which is why the dramatic decrease. I wanted to try. It was tough making shots with that heavy poundage bow, or at least just holding it at full draw when I'm tired.
I'm not man enough to ride an 80-pound bow.
And so I messed around with it, but having the accuracy of a pin down to the exact yardage increment that you need, and being able to put that pin where I need it, I'm able to execute a really good shot. When I got to hold high or hold low or float, pin gap the two and I just don't shoot that well.
It's harder. A little thing I didn't really consider until I got here. When I'm shooting those vertical pin sights, I have this weird habit of getting. I'll draw. I'll be right on where I want to be, and then I'll just do a little peekaboo, so I can see the target again. Whereas because the pin it takes up room in the housing. It's clutter. Every pin you have in there is clutter in the housing.
Yep.
And that's just for me. And not everyone's going to have that mental issues that I have when I'm shooting a bow, but that takes it away because I'm just looking at a single tiny dot, and you can make the dot as small as you want it to be in there. And that just, for me, that takes out one little that desire to do a quick, what's in there again, and just make sure I'm looking at the right thing.
I do it really bad with a horizontal, like 5-pin or 7-pin sight, because let's say the animal is facing to the right, heads to the right. I bring up the pins, and I put my 40-yard pin on it, right? Well, I can't tell if I'm behind the shoulder or not because my pins are blocking the shoulder, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like, am I in the back of the chest cavity or the front of the cavity? And I'm playing peekaboo, like you described.
There you go.
And I'm like, that's a crease. Yep, that's a crease. And so this sight doesn't. It's just a pin floating in space. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the sight picture is so clean. That's really nice. I mean, most of my target scopes, I'm just shooting a dot. But having this is cleaner than that because you can make it so small, and you can change the color, so you can fit it. If you're shooting whatever you're shooting, if you want to have a different color, you can do that.
Yeah. So Morgan, you shot a Sika this week because we're in Texas and there's lots of weird animals here.
Yep.
And so you shot this Sika, and I mean, what was your experience?
So we had gotten in the blind pretty early, and sitting out there in the morning time, and we saw some piglets come in. So we had about 12 piglets just kind of running around while it was dark. And then just as the light was starting to just barely get so you could really start to see around, we had these two majestic creatures walking out, just the longest necks on these things is awesome. And so they're walking up, and it looks like miniature elk walking up. And so we're sitting there watching them, and they're just looking at the blind, and they're staring through our souls. They know that we're there. So I'm trying to hold my breathing, just trying to be relaxed, slow, steady movements. And it was great. These things basically walked right into our laps. They were, I think when I finally made the shot, it was at, 16 yards. And it was just incredible. I had one that I was wanting to shoot, and then it started to go away, and then we had about 5 to 6 whitetail come in from different directions. So I had to make a quick adjustment to the other one because it got broadside on me. Mm-hmm. Made a great opening for me. And so ranged him immediately, made the shot, and he went about 40 yards, and then that's where he passed, just right there. So made a quick, clean shot, and the animal was down, and it basically fell right where the truck came to pick him up.
It's such a cool animal.
Yeah.
It's cool animal.
Beautiful. Big mane on the back of its neck going down.
So how was the sight for you when you were, did it work how was it? What was your initial impression?
It worked out really well. I had some things that, since we had such a short time frame out here doing the target shooting, to get it set up at first, that I had tweaked some things that I shouldn't have, and so I fought a little bit in the sight because of that. But then after the hunt, I came back over here and retweaked some things and got everything aligned, and have just been shooting lasers since then. So initially in the sight, I did have a little bit of deal, so I basically had it. And so you can range this either at full draw, or you can do your ranging right in front of your face. So you can hold the bow, press the trigger down, and range it. And so that's what I did in the sight. And being able to do that, I got the clean kill shot out of that.
Yeah.
So
Emily killed a pig. She was the first one to score on this trip. The very first night you came out and you shot a pig, and we had used the sight. Literally, we got here, set it up in an hour or two, and then we went out and you killed a pig.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I still see some pig blood on her sandals there.
Oh yeah, this is what I wore hunting.
Yeah.
So what was your impression with that? Did you expect that?
No, definitely not. I think everybody coming into hunts like this, a lot of times you have pressure on yourself and you're kind of nervous and you hope it works out that way, but it doesn't always happen. But it was just an awesome sit. We got out there. I was sitting in a tripod stand, only about 10 feet up, so kind of out in the middle of no cover.
Yeah.
But within 10 minutes from when we got there, we just had wildlife the entire time. So whitetails and axis deer. There was these huge longbeards, like bigger than any turkeys I've seen in Pennsylvania. It was awesome. And I was like, man, where are these hogs? We're seeing everything else. But it was so cool, constant action. And then shortly before dark, there were 3 whitetail bucks in front of us, and you could tell they were just not having something that was coming in. They took off, and just a couple minutes later, this group of hogs came in. And I picked the largest one in the group there and started ranging, holding in that button. Let go because he was kind of sitting still eating. Double checked. I wanted to look there and just make sure that I was ranging the correct thing and not maybe the tree behind it. Came up 23 yards. I knew that was right on. As soon as the hog was broadside, took the shot, and it was a great hit. Got it in the heart, went maybe 30 feet and died. So it was awesome.
I've noticed, like last night when that Hogzilla came in and there's a lot of trees in my way. So I'm kind of trying to shoot through this space where I have to wait for this pig to come out and give me a shot. And it's a little dark. It's pretty low light. Pig comes out, and but I was able to range him and see exactly where that crease in the shoulder was. There was no obstruction of the target, which I think is a big deal for me because, it just looks like a big brown barrel, and it's hard to tell. I can see where some legs are sticking out the bottom a little bit, but it was because of the sight picture is so clean. There's no obstruction. It was easy to put the dot right where I imagined the heart to be.
Well, and that was Hogzilla, and mine, I'm shooting at like a 50-pound pig, so that's even more important. Yes.
So when he turned and gave me that shot, it was just super easy to execute. The day before or earlier, I shot a sow, and that morning I wanted to shoot a longer distance shot. It was a little dark. I was a little impatient, and there was a pig out there, and I ranged it a couple of times, and it was 46 yards. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to shoot a long shot at this pig, and they're just trying to get rid of him out here because they're just destroying the place. So I took aim, and it was a little too dark. I shot, I missed. And then as the sun came up, there was a whole wall of like bushes, kind of trees in the way that I didn't see in the dark. I just saw this big black pig and didn't see that. But it still ranged accurately to the pig, even though there were some branches in the way. I don't expect it. I expect it to perform like a typical rangefinder, where if something's obstructing your view, you're not going to be able to get a range.
I had a little trouble with that this morning. I was kind of not in a blind. I was really just kind of in a chair behind, in some bushes. And so I was kind of exposed, and I saw some pigs walk out, and one of them eyeballed me, right away, but then turned around and went to commence to doing pig stuff. And then, one of them turned broadside for me. So I drew back, spooked them. They ran off, and then there was some piglets left. But I'm at full draw still, so I just kind of moved the sight over to where the piglets were, and got my timbit in the hole, and fired the arrow, and it went over top. And I'm not sure. I mean, they're small, so not a miss is possible because they were about as big as a football, and they're about 30 yards away. Mm-hmm. And then I put the sight down, like, I can't believe I missed, and I looked at the sight and it said yardage mark was 3 yards. So there was like little tufts of grass and small branches in front of me, and so I think when I switched from the bigger pig to the piglets, I probably just crossed in front of there, and when I let go of the button, that's the yardage you picked up. And so when you shoot 3 yards, normally that's more like a 40-yard pin,
right?
And so it just scooted over top of their heads. Yep. So that was but that's on me because you still have to check the number.
Right.
Because clearly they weren't 3 yards away. So I kind of got excited. And
the first night I sat, 2 big boars came in, and I went to full draw on those boars. And it just was brand new because we had just set it up that afternoon, like an hour earlier. So here I am hunting with it right away. That was the goal, though, was to set it up and use it and see how quickly you could adapt.
Yep.
You know, how user-friendly is this thing? But I got to full draw, and I was aiming at that pig. And it was a little low light at that point. Still easy to shoot, still plenty of shooting light. But when I ranged it, the LCD screen that pops up and tells you on the top of the sight housing what the yardage is and the angle, I couldn't see it because I didn't turn the backlight on.
Yeah, I had the same problem the first night as well.
And so I'm like, I'm ranging it, and I went to look to verify that it, because there was some stuff in the way. I could tell if it gave me back 3 yards or, 20 yards, I would know that it's not, it's just a sanity check.
Yeah.
How close am I? So when I went to look at that LCD screen and a backlight wasn't on, I couldn't see it. So then I had to let the draw down and then get really close to the screen and look at it and then get it back. And by then, the pigs were milling around and took off, and it cost me a shot that I could have had. So just getting familiar with it, there's some little things like that took a little getting used to. But after 2 days of shooting 3D targets and walking around with you guys and then shooting with shooting some live animals, now target acquisition is fast.
It's really quick.
Ranging is fast. Mm-hmm. Dropping the pin where I need it like that, and I'm shooting fast. Now, if I still have yet to test it in the pouring rain, in snow, traditionally where I have issues with a traditional rangefinder in those conditions, I'm still, I don't know if it's going to work. But the upside to that, this sight will convert with the tap of a button into a fixed pin sight.
Yeah, just the same button you used to range. You just tap one more time. It's pretty intuitive.
And so that to me is like you basically have a fixed pin sight in an instant. So when you're not getting the range and you want to it's the same problem you'd have with any rangefinder in your hand, basically. You can immediately go to that fixed pin setup.
And those fixed pins are the ones you had to go in the range and do beforehand, and you had to set those up manually. So it's not like it's doing some algorithm and popping it up for you. Like you're going in and setting those up, and yeah.
Well, the nice thing is once you've got enough, you've got enough test distances made out there at the range, and when you get to your stand, and then you'll see there, maybe you see that I don't have a clear marker for 20 yards, but I've got something at 16 and I've got something at 37. You can actually change your fixed pins to be whatever you want when you're in the field. You just say, I want to change that first pin from being 20 to being 24. I want to change that third pin to be 32 or whatever it's going to be. And you can change it on the fly depending on what circumstances you find yourself in.
Right. Yeah. I found it extremely easy to use. So what are some of the downsides you're seeing with it? Emily, you see anything? Lucas?
I mean, for me, getting that bad range on the piglet, but I mean, that's still up to me to check. Mm-hmm. I got excited moving from one target to another one. I just keep the acquisition and but that's still ultimately on the hunter to make that call.
Part of it's just a learning curve because, like you said, we got it and within 2 hours we were hunting with it.
Yeah.
So learning the ins and outs and the different things that you can do with it.
Right. I liken it to like a sliding sight, which I did at the Coos deer hunt. I slid my dial and then I forgot to slide it back, and I ended up missing Cudamunde that I should have nailed because I forgot to set it back. So out here, when we were shooting a target, when you range it and it drops your pin, it sets that pin for you, right? And that pin will stay there as long as you don't re-range, right? So it'll be there. You can bring that pin up. Like if you have a buck kind of walking, you already got your pin set. You know what range he's in. You're just waiting for him to come out. You don't have to range him again. You have your pin set. You're ready to rock and roll as long as he's, at the same yardage. But, shooting out here, I accidentally pushed the button, didn't know it, brought it back up and took a 70-yard shot when I accidentally ranged the ground when I was picking up a new arrow, and it was 3 yards. And so I ended up sailing that arrow way way beyond over the target. So I think it's very easy to, you can make a mistake, but once you've got the hang of it, like now it's all second nature. I range quickly. I verify the LCD in seconds. And I know it's right on. And then having shot all the 3D and the live animals now, it's like I have confidence that it's actually doing what it says it's doing. Because in the beginning, the first couple of times, the first day or two, I was like, I didn't trust it at all.
Yeah, it's like, here goes nothing.
Zero trust. I'm like, well, it dropped a pin. Okay. But now, yeah, I'm building confidence in it as it just repeatedly works.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a different mental checklist to go through when you're making the shot.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you're saying, looking at the pin, looking at the LCD, going back, and pulling it off.
Yes. So the discussion, what kind of so we touched on it just a little bit earlier, but I feel like there's a lot of, as I did some Instagram stories while we were on this trip and I brought it up, I got a few people that wrote in and said, I would never use that. A true bow hunter would never use that sight because it takes the skill out of bow hunting.
I don't know what skill it takes away. Unless you were someone who never used a rangefinder, what skill is it taking away? The skill of being fast to move a single pin slider, is that a skill? What part of bow hunting is like, it's doesn't make it any easier to pull your bow back or hold on target. You still have to do all of that stuff. It's just a bit of technology that makes things maybe, a little more ethical. So when you're pin gapping is the main thing for me. I don't know.
It takes away extra movement.
Yeah.
It takes away more opportunities to get busted. Mm-hmm. This feels like what it takes away, which is good if you're a hunter.
I mean, I already used a rangefinder and a sight, so now it's just combined into one. So unless I wasn't a real bow hunter before, I think I'm still the same level of bow hunter now. I'm just more ethically shooting.
Well, you know Sloan Brown.
Yep.
At Backbone Media. He and I were hunting in Texas in the Panhandle on his family's property. And beautiful buck comes in. We've been targeting this buck for a couple of days. Comes walking in. I'm going to out Sloan right here. I think we talked about it before. Comes walking in. It's like 25, 30 yards, maybe 32. I don't know. Somewhere in that ballpark, right? In that situation, I typically would range second I got in the stand. And I would kind of know, okay, that's this. And so when the buck came by, I would kind of trying to remember, like you said, Morgan, like I'd range it 50 times throughout the whole time. Yep. Well, we got in the tree barely. Sloan didn't really have time to do that before the buck pinned us and bedded right next to us, so we couldn't really afford to move around too much. Buck comes down the trail, and Sloan was not comfortable drawing and guessing the yardage, so he pulled out the rangefinder. Now, this buck is walking into this field, and it's got a mission. It's going somewhere, but it's in range just for a few moments, and it can be in range at 40 yards, 30, 35, 20, 25, 30, 40 as it's moving, right? And you don't quite know when it's going to stop, and, it's risky grunting at them. Sometimes right there, they're just so pressured, they just bolt. And so, but he wanted to range it, pulls out the rangefinder, and that movement and then his release tapped the side of the rangefinder and went smack, and that buck just disappeared. And looking at that, it's like, I would have drawn my bow in Sloan's position, and I would have been like, I think it's 25 yards, or I think it's 30. And I would have guessed. I would be pretty confident in my guess, but still, it's a guess. And we did this yesterday, and I've proven this to myself. I'm not so good at that despite my best efforts. With this sight, Sloan could just draw, know the exact yardage, and heart shoot the deer. And one of the things I'm excited about is you're effectively getting the single pin slider accuracy down to the 1 yard increment. But you're getting it while the animal's moving around. So in Oklahoma, there were bucks running all around me, and they were out at 40 yards, and they'd stop. And they were back here at 20 yards, and they'd stop. And then they're at 25, and then they're 30. And you're constantly trying to guess. And I wasn't confident at taking shots without knowing the yardage. And so I'm ranging trees like you said, but then I'm like, okay, where is it? And by the time I got it figured out, they would move again. And you have to do these mental calculations. Okay, that tree was 30, that's about 35, buck moves. You know, with this setup, I'm able to bypass all that.
Yeah.
But there are, I mean, Emily, what do you think is going to be an impact to the harvest rates? I mean, just in your own situation, in your own shoes, do you picture yourself, you know, capitalizing on more opportunities with this setup than you would without it?
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully most hunters, you know, if we're not sure or we're not confident in a shot, we're not taking it. And so for me, it makes me 10 times more confident if I know I have that exact pin and I know exactly where that deer or whatever is going to be. And so it is going to make me feel like a more ethical hunter. And so, yeah, I might get some more kills, you know, during the season. But I don't think it's something that we have to be concerned about. Like, oh, this is going to, you know, just destroy the population or it's going to take away opportunities for other people. You know, it's hopefully going to decrease the number of wounded animals, and it's just going to either be, you know, someone's not taking the shot or somebody's getting a clean kill.
Yeah, so we're feeding the coyotes a little less.
Yeah. Morgan, I mean, do you have any concerns about that, like increased harvest rates? And
No, I don't think the sight's going to blow up the hunting scene, and just every hunter that walks out in the woods is going to take down a trophy bull or trophy buck or whatever it is. There's so much work that goes into hunting beforehand, before that animal walks in front of you, and you still have to be able to check out the corridors and do all the scouting and everything before then. And just when you're in the moment and that shot presents itself, it gives you that exact opportunity and that clear sight picture to make a clean, quick kill. And like, I think that's a win.
Yeah, I think, you know, personally, I think that the success rates will increase.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, when you add a level of technology, but you got to think about it for a minute. Who is it going to increase for? Basically, it's going to increase for the guy maybe that gets the shot, right? Gets in place to make the shot, but doesn't have time to use the rangefinder, right? And so he either passes on the shot or he has to guess yardage. It's also going to help the guy who has to pin gap, that has quite a bit of arrow drop and isn't as good at pin gapping, right? So, but it's not going to help the guy who can't climb the mountain, who can't get in position, who can't play the wind, they can't call in an elk, let's say. You know, it's not going to help the guy that can't do all those things.
Yeah.
It's just going to help the guy that can, and then it's not going to help the guy who chokes under pressure and the guy who gets buck fever and target panic. It's not going to help the guy who is a horrible shot to begin with. Right? It's so it doesn't eliminate all those things. It's not like this magic heat-seeking missile that finds the target, you know. It's only going to help the person that is already can do all those things, but now in that moment of truth doesn't have time to get the rangefinder out, basically, because in essence we all carry one. Yeah. I mean, even the trad guys I know a ton of them. Even Aaron would use the rangefinder because his point on is 38 yards with the tip of the arrow. And he's dang accurate at 38. You drop down to 25, it's like a big mystery. Mm-hmm. Like, it should be aiming at the elk's knee, you know, or hoof. Like, at what point, right? And so, even guys I know that shoot traditional a lot of them use rangefinders.
It just makes it's so much more ethical to know the range when using a rangefinder. So I don't know.
But isn't the point of archery to make it more difficult? And aren't we like circumventing that process when we use all of this technology?
Everything we do we've discussed this. Everything we do makes it a little bit easier. So again, if we're, you know, I think it's up to the person to decide where that stops. Again, you know, when compound bows were maxing out at 270 feet a second, and now they're getting 370 feet a second. Well, I bet you that have a much bigger impact than on a kill rate than this sight. Or when we first got wheels on bows, or when we went from long bows to recurve limbs, all those little things, we're going to have incremental increases in the amount of animals being harvested. So I don't know if this one is going to be bigger than any of those. So
yeah, I mean, shooting a bow is still a difficult thing. You can't just pick it up and be awesome like as soon as you pick it up. But
speak for yourself.
But at the same time, you look at these bows and like these brand new compound bows that are coming out, and the amount of technology and engineering and all the features that are integrated into this tool that we go out and hunt with. There's so much there. Like it's just that sort of version on a sight.
Morgan, what's your goal when you go out? I mean, what are you trying to do?
My goal when I go out is to have a great experience. Like I grew up hunting and fishing out in Kansas with my dad, my brother, and just enjoying walking the lands and taking that up into the mountains and into the Western style of hunting and just continuing that. And in the end of it, like a part of that goal is bringing meat back to the freezer for me and being successful and being able to feed myself and just having a good all around experience and not coming back disgruntled and upset because I missed an animal or I wounded an animal, and just like really wrapping it all together. Like that's what hunting is for me.
Emily?
What hunting is for me?
Yeah, like what's your goal when you go out?
Yeah, definitely similar to what Morgan said. Every time you're out there, I think you're learning something, and just being out in nature is an awesome experience. You want to put meat on the table. You want to make a quick, ethical kill. And just anything that's making that a better chance, is definitely a good tool to have.
So let me ask you, Emily, right now is archery hunting with the setup that you've got so easy that it's like a cakewalk, you're guaranteed success every time you go out?
No, definitely not. And like I said, coming in here, I feel so much pressure. When you work in the industry, it's like, well, I have to be successful. This is part of my job. And so, I don't think if you've never missed an animal or made a bad shot, you probably haven't been doing it very long. As much as we practice and put in the time to make sure that doesn't happen, we're never perfect. There's always a human element. There might be wind, a deer moves, a branch makes you deflect. You're never going to be, 100% perfect. And so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I like Lucas, when you go out and what are your success rates right now?
Well, I'm pretty new to hunting still. I've only been at this for a little bit of time. So my success rates, I've taken both my deer have been at this camp, which is on, amazingly well maintained and managed piece of land, for something that's not a high fence operation. There's just an abundance of wildlife here. So it makes life easier. When I've gone out on my own, up in Ontario, Canada, my success rate has not been strong. So again, but I'm still trying to learn as much as I can. I'm still going to make a ton of mistakes, and hopefully I'll learn from them and figure out how to do things better, where to put a stand, where to put a blind to have better to get better success. Because I'm a puppy as far as hunting goes.
You, Morgan.
Sorry, I spaced out. What's the question?
So I'm curious, like what are your success rates when you're going out?
The success rates. Whitetail season, just looking at the last whitetail season I went in Kansas, it was difficult. I was able to be back at home from like October 1st all the way till January 1st throughout the whole season. And I got one down on the ground, but I also missed an opportunity at about 170 class whitetail. It hurt. And, it varies. Elk season, I didn't have success in Colorado due to the hunting pressure that was in that GMU, and there's so many variables.
The reason I'm asking each of you this question is hunting so easy for you with a bow that you need to add more levels of difficulty? Like maybe stop using a rangefinder, or maybe switch to a recurve, or is hunting so easy for you? Are your success rates so high right now that you should drop the tech?
Sure, there are no guarantees.
Nope. Yeah, that's my whole thing is I already have a difficult enough time going out and killing an animal and bringing it home for the freezer and having that experience. using all the technology I can get my hands on that's legal for a certain unit or time of year. I'm just not ready to remove the tech from my experience. And I think it's a natural progression for a hunter as they become better and better, more and more skilled, that it's very easy. Like Aaron's gotten to the point where the compound's not a challenge anymore. Ever. Just not. He's bored last year. So now he's shooting a recurve. But I'm not that guy. I'm not the guy that has an uncanny talent for guessing yardage and then predicting the wind and adjusting and drilling everything I shoot at 100 yards. It's not me. It's not me. So for me, it's like, I feel like with technology, it's one of those things where let the hunter decide what's appropriate for him and what works. Make sure it's legal and all of that. But I don't want to limit myself. You know, there's certain things that I won't use anymore. Like I never use a radio anymore. On a stock. I want to have that challenge of, when I'm stalking an animal that's way over there, I want to look at the landmarks, get over, and I want to get in without the help of someone else. Just like if I were solo hunting. There's certain things I want to have now, but 5 years ago, I welcomed those tools because without it, I suck so bad, I would never come home with stuff. So I think it's a natural evolution as a hunter to reduce their reliance on technology as it becomes easier and easier and easier. And for people who don't reduce the reliance on technology, you know what they do instead? They do the same thing. Instead of reducing their reliance on technology, though, to make the hunt tougher, they're like, I only want to shoot a 380 class bull or bigger or 200-inch buck or 180 or whatever it is.
Yep.
And they limit themselves that way. So they still keep all the advanced tech in their back pocket and use as much as possible. But it would be just too easy if they just went out and shot a 150 class buck. So they raise the bar and make it more difficult by selecting an older age class animal that's more wily and more rare. But either way, it's like a progression of a hunter to limit themselves in some way. I see it in every hunter I know limits themselves in some way to have a personal experience that they value.
I look forward to the day when a 150 class buck is too easy. I'm hoping that'll be soon, but I'm not counting on it.
Right. I mean, it's sort of the difference when I go to a unit that took 8 years to draw or something, and I've got a rifle in hand. The last thing I want to do is shoot something that I would be able to shoot with a bow on an over-the-counter hunt anytime any time of the year. You change it based on the technology you have in your hand and the opportunity, because we don't want to just walk out and shoot something in a cage.
Yeah.
We want a certain experience.
It's the thrill of the chase.
Yeah, you want that chase, but it's a balance based on your skill set and all these other things. But I think it's a natural progression to limit yourself. So I hate it when people want to, throw out a law or ban something, because, I think hunters will do that to themselves. As long as the technology doesn't have a negative ecological impact and it increases your lethality, how lethal you are, I think you're doing a good thing when it comes to going out and getting meat and bringing it home.
Yeah, I'd agree on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Emily, where can people get a hold of you? Instagram, social media?
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can also check out Peterson's Bow Hunting. We're on all those channels as well.
Okay. And it's Emily. What's your Instagram handle?
Emmy Cole Kantner.
So weird.
I know. It was my nickname when I was a kid. So.
And Morgan.
So my Instagram's Mountain Morgan. It's MTN Morgan. And then for all the articles I'll be putting up, those will be on GearJunkie.com on the hunt category.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Really excited that Gear Junkie's getting into the hunting space.
Yeah, me too. Because I got a job now, so that's cool.
And Lucas.
You can just follow the Archery Talk Facebook page. I'm the only one that looks after that. The Archery Talk YouTube channel, and on the Archery Talk forum, I'm on there regularly, posting up stuff and reading everyone else's.
Excellent. All right. Anything else you guys want to close with? Anything? This is your chance to say it right now.
No, my trophy's out of range, so you're good.
Very cool. Emily?
Nope, I'm good.
Good. All right, folks. Thanks for listening to the Gritty Bowmen. We got a plane to catch, so we're going to wrap up and follow these guys. Look for their stories, their articles on the site. I'm sure we'll do more testing, and we'll see if we can break this thing, screw it up, find a reason not to use it.
Exactly.
But so far, so
Thumbs up.
good.
impressed. All right, guys. Stay
Cool.
gritty.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Despite our ever-changing, ever-indignant world with its growing ignorance of and indifference to the ways of the wild, I remain a predator, pitying those who revel in artificiality and synthetic success while regarding me and my kind as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood. I stalk a real world of dark wood and tall grass stirred by a restless wind blowing across sunlit water and beneath star-strewn sky. And on those occasions when I choose to kill, to claim some small part of nature's bounty for my own, I do so by choice, quickly, with the learned efficiency of a skilled hunter. Further, in my heart and mind, I know the truth and make no apologies for my actions or my place and time. Others around me may opt to eat only plants, nuts, and fruits. Still others may employ faceless strangers to procure their meats, their leather, their feathers, and all those niceties and necessities of life. Such is their right, of course, and I wish them well. All I ask in return is no one begrudge me, and all of us who may answer the primordial stirrings within our hunter souls, my right to do some of these things myself.
What you just heard is a quote from M.R. James. We truly live in a world that is largely ignorant and indifferent to the ways of the wild. And although some regard us as relics of a time and place no longer valued or understood, we have the opportunity to change the way these people view the hunter and the hunt. We can share our experiences and nature's bounty with those who employ these faceless strangers. And by so doing, we make a difference, not just for ourselves, but for the wild animals in the wild places we care so deeply about. Never stop sharing your passion for hunting and the outdoors. Our wild animals and our wild places depend on it.
This is Ty Stubblefield, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
Gritty Bowmen.